Emma Mijas died a horrible and painful death unnecessarily on her very first Christmas Eve 2004 at the hands of 25 doctors and nurses, another victim of medical malpractice. All 25 doctors and nurses systematically administered the wrong drugs for her life-threatening condition called SLOS. SLOS, Smith-Lemli-Optis syndrome, is a congenital abnormality which requires treatment strategies on supplying supplemental cholesterol. They gave Emma the wrong drug, Questran, not once, but 92 times. Yes, 92 times in 1 month. A cholesterol-reducing drug, not the cholesterol supplemental drug she needed. All of them knew better. They were trained to know better. They were some of the world's leading authorities at the Louisiana State University Health Science Center in New Orleans. But they just didn't give a damn about Emma's life. In 2013, the prestigious Journal of Patient Safety published a study that as many as 440,000 patients die each year from preventable medical errors. That would make medical errors the third leading cause of death in America, behind heart disease and cancer, which is second. These people are not dying from the illnesses that caused them to seek hospital care in the first place. No, they are dying from mistakes that hospitals could have prevented. What are these fatal errors? Who are these incompetent and negligent doctors? A New England Journal of Medicine, January 28, 2016 study reported that 1% of physicians accounted for 32% of paid malpractice claims over the last 10 years. The ugly truth is that little is being done to hold these dangerous doctors accountable. Researchers found that bad doctors showed distinctive characteristics, including having paid previous malpractice claims. So it stands to reason that healthcare providers could eliminate 1/3 of medical malpractice along with patients' pain and suffering, as well as the added cost of corrective surgeries, long-term care, and indemnity payments by removing the worst 1% of doctors. Why aren't bad doctors stopped from practicing? The answer lies, at least partially, in the National Practitioner Data Bank, a clearinghouse for information on medical malpractice that Congress established in 1986 to help state licensing boards police the healthcare industry. The national database was supposed to help states identify dangerous doctors and prevent them from harming more patients, and is used by hospitals, insurers, and licensing boards to track doctors' records, check prospective hires, and make other decisions. But it is virtually useless in holding doctors accountable because, by federal law, none are listed by name. They are assigned a random number to protect their identities. Even if doctors were identified in the data as they should be, the public would still be barred by law from accessing the records. So vulnerable, sick patients sit in the waiting rooms of bad physicians without a clue about their poor record of performance. And in many cases, a negligent doctor's insurance company pays the victim of malpractice and the doctor goes back to work. If a doctor develops a bad enough reputation in one town, he can move to a new state and continue practicing. This is unbelievable. But today, the public does not have access to the database to identify doctors' names and addresses, to identify doctors with uniquely long histories of being sued or disciplined for medical malpractice. Because on September 1st, 2011, the government cut off public access. What was behind that decision? Apparently, one Kansas doctor with a trail of malpractice suits, Dr. Robert Tenney. The Kansas-based doctor complained to the Government Health Resources and Service Administration that the Kansas City Star newspaper was publishing the story of one of his patients, Mary Beth Chase, who died in 2007 after undergoing a brain surgery with Dr. Tenney. It is also noted that Tenney has been sued at least 16 times for medical malpractice, but had never been disciplined by the state's licensing boards. The Insider Exclusive produced a TV story on this case with the lawyers who represented Mary Beth's family when doctors go bad, Mary Beth Chase versus Dr. Robert T. Tenney. Tenney finally settled the Chase family's wrongful death suit for $1 million. The settlement brought total malpractice payments paid on Tenney's behalf since the early 1990s to roughly $3.7 million. In some states, including California, Colorado, Georgia, and New York, patients can go to medical boards' websites to find out about doctors' malpractice histories, but not in Kansas and Missouri. Why don't doctors report on bad doctors? Physicians often see the mistakes made by their peers, which puts them in a sticky ethical situation. Should they tell the patient about a mistake made by a different doctor? Too often they don't. Why not? One reason is that doctors depend on each other for business, so a physician who breaks the code of silence may become known as an informer or snitch and lose referrals, a financial penalty. Doctors also may be wary of becoming entangled in a medical malpractice case or causing a colleague to face legal consequences. The bottom line, too often doctors aren't learning from errors, nor are patients getting the information they need to receive proper treatment or compensation when the outcome is harmful. In this Insider Exclusive Network TV special, Justice in America, Joseph Stewart's story, we visit with Anthony Ofodile, principal at Ofodile & Associates, as we take you inside today's legal system, examining Anthony's strategies and his clients' thoughts, and in vivid detail showing you the often heartbreaking stories of cases like his client, Joseph Stewart's family, who Anthony successfully won a verdict for $1.3 million. These victims could be you or me one day, and if you are so unlucky, you will quickly find out that justice in America is a hard-won battle where very few insurance companies, doctors, nurses, and hospitals ever do the right thing. And you need experienced and passionate trial lawyers like Anthony Ofodile, who wage these battles with their own financial resources to get their clients justice. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from New York. It is my great pleasure to introduce Anthony Ofodile to the show. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you, Steve.
Tell our audience a little bit about your type of practice.
I do primarily civil rights and employment discrimination cases. I represent mostly the indigent, the poor, the incarcerated who have no voice. And I try to be that voice for them. And in employment discrimination cases too, people who have lost their jobs, who have no money, who are looking for justice. I try to be that voice for them to try to get them that justice if their case so deserves it.
This is a tough practice to pursue justice on behalf of the folks that nobody seems to care about almost, right? But you do this because you're originally from Nigeria, right? You know how horrible sometimes living in these countries can be, and justice is not even there. So is that your motivation to represent these people? Is that where this comes from?
Well, I've growing up, even in Nigeria, the person who has no voice has always been the person I want to represent most. So, and coming here and having the opportunity to practice, I basically continued what I had started in Nigeria and trying to work in an area I believe I'll be most useful, and also which for me will be most gratifying and satisfying.
This next case, the Joseph Stewart case, is a medical malpractice which resulted in a wrongful death.
Yes.
Tell our audience a little bit about the case, please?
This is a case of a gentleman that he's a resident, but he spends some time in Jamaica, West Indies. So he came from Jamaica because he was having some medical issues which he was not able to get resolved. So he came here and went to New York Hospital, Queens, and he was admitted and stayed there from September 2nd to September 12th, and then was discharged. When he was discharged, his condition was medically much worse than when he was admitted.
Anthony, what was he misdiagnosed with?
He was misdiagnosed as suffering from temporal arthritis, but they never conducted any test to confirm that he had temporal arthritis. And all the medications they were giving to him, the steroids, were to treat temporal arthritis. He had told them that they were treating him for temporal arthritis in Jamaica. And he left Jamaica to come to the United States because the treatment was not working. The man knew his body and knew that the treatment was not helping him. So when he came to the US, even though they continued to give him treatment for temporal arthritis, his condition was worsening. And so that was the misdiagnosis.
So as a result of this misdiagnosis, he died.
Yes, he died.
And that resulted in filing suit against the hospital, correct?
Yes.
Now, in trying this case, Anthony, there were some difficulties you ran into, especially with defense counsel, where, as I understand it, they objected nonstop, right, to some of the expert testimonies, making it very difficult for you to put on a case, correct?
Yes. In fact, they objected to everything. It eventually became a situation where my experts could not use any word if I did not use them in my expert disclosures. And it was so difficult to put on an expansive case. So after my expert testified, based on the standard that they had actually established, the objections they were making, the defense expert's disclosure was so much more paltry compared to what plaintiff disclosed. So I made a motion to the judge and said, you can't allow them to say anything other than what their disclosure said. And then they asked the judge, they made a motion to allow them to supplement their expert disclosures. And they were allowed to give an expansive expert disclosure to the effect that the expert was basically able to testify unhindered. In fact, the plaintiff and counsel, we felt that the limitation was so harmful that I moved for mistrial on that basis, because I felt that it was difficult in such a situation to put on a case, especially having been circumscribed the way we were. Defendants were allowed to expand and supplement their expert disclosure before their experts testified the following day.
Mm-hmm. Now, you eventually got a verdict for your client, correct? What was that verdict?
It was $1.3 million.
Mm-hmm. But this case is now up on appeal. Is that right?
Yes, it's still on appeal, yes.
So we're awaiting the status of that.
Yes, and the appeal will be argued hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months, yes.
Okay. Fortunately, we have the son of your client, Joseph Stewart, Michael Stewart, here today, and we're going to bring him on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Michael Stewart to the show. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Welcome, sir. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. This was a sad occasion. Your dad passed away. He was misdiagnosed, and as a result of that, Anthony represented the estate, you and your family, and he won a pretty significant verdict, which I understand is up on appeal right now. But Tell our audience a little bit about your dad.
Yes, well, my dad was a average dad, very loved. He's the kind of dad you'd want to be around forever. He was just like my hero. He made life possible for me and my brothers, and he gave us the best he could, educationally and support. So what happened to him was very, very unfortunate and it's very sad, very sad. He was from a humble beginning, was a contractor in Jamaica and here in America, and he did well for himself. And he came here because he wasn't feeling well, and he got to the hospital. I wanted to take him to a Methodist hospital, and his friend told him to go to the Presbyterian hospital, and he went with his friend. And once he got to the hospital, they just started to give him medication. And he was complaining for headaches. And his entire stay in the hospital, the headache did not go away, not even, I would say, for an hour. Only on medication it would ease, he would sleep. But he was the kind of dad, you just can't help but love him.
So you saw he was getting worse, even though he was going to the hospital, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that a big red flag?
I was trusting the doctors.
As a lot of people do. But they failed to diagnose him properly, and as a result of that, he passed away.
He certainly did.
If the doctors were here right now, what would you say to them?
I would say shame on them. And the main reason I would say shame on them, he was assigned a doctor who was an intern, who wasn't really a licensed doctor. She was a practitioner. She was just practicing. An intern, doing an intern. And she was introduced to me as the practicing physician.
So it's been 6 years. What do you think about the legal system? Because now this case is up on appeal. You won a big verdict. What do you think about how the legal system works in America?
It gives and takes. It's a system where the defendant, and this is just my opinion, the defendant has too much leeway with the system, where the verdict was rendered and the system still, with all what's happening, still just failed us up until this point.
What do you think about, what's your opinion about Anthony's representation of you and your family in this case?
It's awesome. It's awesome. Just awesome. It's the only word I could use to summarize it.
How has your life changed as a result of your dad's passing?
Significantly. He was my mentor. He was my advisor. He was my prayer warrior. He was also a preacher. And, he would call you 3 o'clock in the morning just to pray for you.
That's good. Well, you want to add anything else about your dad or this whole case?
Well, I hope we can come to a resolution where we could get this case ended and we could go on with our lives. And I just miss my dad. I just missed him.
I want to thank you very much for spending time with us, and good luck with the case.
All right, thank you.
Anthony, a lot of people say, that the doctor screwed up, and when somebody dies or they're in worse condition as a result of going to a doctor. What exactly is medical malpractice? How's that defined?
Well, medical malpractice uses what we call a community standard. If a doctor performs below what the average doctor in the community, how such doctor will perform in either diagnosing, treating, or performing surgery. That basically it can be the form of giving the wrong medication, which compounds or causes adverse effects. It can be the form of forgetting an equipment or something in the patient, or it can be a form of not doing the proper test to diagnose what is wrong with a particular patient that leads to an adverse effect, including death.
How do you, as a lawyer, evaluate a potential medical malpractice case? What do you need?
First of all, there has to be serious injury because medical malpractice is one of the most expensive areas to litigate. And then you have to hire a lawyer, first of all, to evaluate the medical records and then decide where the malpractice is. And the best way, most of the time, unfortunately, is if the clients are able to get the records themselves soon after the incident before it's able to go through risk management. Because after that, I don't know how to put it, but certain times after it goes through risk management, in fact, it has happened to me in several cases, the incriminating documents that is in the record that the client obtained is not in the record that the hospital turns over to you. So if you don't have what gives you the telltale sign, it may be difficult to find it. But if you have a very competent expert, the expert can help.
You brought up something very important. I know a lot of people think it's difficult to get medical records from a hospital for their family members or someone they're related to, which they're entitled to, right? They're entitled to get them within what frame of time?
I can tell you for sure that, but the best way, I've had cases where somebody dies in the hospital, the client is able to obtain the medical records before they left the hospital that day. And that is usually the best way to do it. Get it before you leave the hospital, before it goes through risk management.
Are they required by law, the hospital, to turn them over right then and there?
I can't say they are required by law to turn it right over there and then, but within a reasonable time, so. But some hospitals give it to you.
So probably the best thing is call a lawyer like yourself, because you can use your court motions, right, to file to get these right away, correct?
Once a lawsuit is filed, obviously you're entitled to the records. You're going to get them. But for some hospitals, I wouldn't say all of them, but for some hospitals, by that time, they're giving you what they want to give you, even though they're required to give you everything. Of course, they are saying they are giving you everything, but my experience and that of many lawyers I know is that it's not exactly everything that comes into you at that time. So it's gone through many levels of review before it comes to you.
When someone comes to you with a medical malpractice case, because a lot of people are saying, hey, the doctor screwed up, how do you evaluate the cases that you take?
First of all, I'm looking at the injuries. I'm doing a cost-benefit analysis. If I have to spend $50,000 on experts or doctors, how much is the case worth? Does it make sense? There are some cases where the malpractice is obvious, but you can go to trial, spend $55,000. I've spent $33,000 on a case for a prisoner and recovered $35,000 from the judge in a court of claims case. So you spend 2-3 years. So that's one. Secondly, it's looking at the proof, and in terms of what the doctor you have or your experts think are provable. There are things that you have a hunch, something happened, but if you don't have proof, you can prove anything. For example, I had a client who walked into the hospital, came out quadriplegic. I had 3, 4, 5 experts looking at it. Eventually, nobody could pinpoint what was wrong. We couldn't prove that case. But we know something went wrong. We just didn't find what went wrong. It was supposed to be a common surgery, back surgery to expand the discs. She ended up a quadriplegic. I had experts look at it over and over. So it's proof too. You may have very serious injuries, but you may not be able to prove it if somebody cannot pinpoint exactly what the doctor who did the surgery or who treated the patient did wrong.
Okay, well, let's hope the appeal is successful. And thank you very much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.